The fight for Willow Lake. The pounding on my cabin door came at midnight, sharp and relentless, like a hammer driving nails into the quiet of Willow Lake. I stumbled out of bed, heart racing, and peeked through the curtain. 2 squad cars sat angled across my gravel drive, their red and blue lights flickering over the pines like an uninvited carnival. Behind them stood Margaret Hensley, president of the Willow Lake Homeowners Association, arms crossed, her smirk glowing in the headlights. She thought she had me cornered. She was wrong. This land, built board by my father in the 1970s, was never part of her HOA. That night marked the start of a battle I never expected, but one I was ready to fight. The cabin was my refuge, a 1-story sanctuary of hand-hewn logs tucked 50 feet from the lake's edge in rural Michigan. I'd come back after my father's passing, leaving behind the grind of city life to reclaim the peace of this place. The smell of pine sap and lake water hit me like a wave of memory every time I stepped onto the porch. I could still see Dad in his flannel, coffee in hand, casting lines off the dock before dawn. This wasn't just a house site, it was a legacy. But Margaret had other plans, and she wasn't about to let a little thing like property lines stop her. That first night, the deputies barked through the door, "Step outside. You're unlawfully occupying this property." Barefoot on the creaking porch, I faced them, disbelief bubbling into a sharp laugh. "Trespassing? This cabin's been in my family for decades. You're standing on my land." Margaret stepped forward, clutching a folder like a weapon. "This lakefront falls under HOA jurisdiction," she said, voice dripping with authority. "You're violating community regulations." The deputies glanced at each other, unsure. I held up a utility bill, address clear as day, 127 Willow Cove, outside HOA boundaries. The older deputy read it, his stance softening. Margaret's jaw tightened, but she pressed on. "Community water access supersedes private claims. You're endangering shared resources." I pulled out my phone, the red recording light blinking. "If you're calling cops to my home, we're getting this on record." The deputies hesitated, then backed off, promising to verify jurisdiction with the county. Margaret lingered in the gravel, her eyes locked on mine, silent but screaming, "This isn't over." And I knew she meant it. The next morning, I was wiping down the porch railing, breathing in the crisp lake air, when I heard her footsteps sharp, deliberate, like a general marching to war. Margaret, in a neon jogging outfit, clipboard in hand, stormed up my steps. "You need to leave immediately," she snapped. "This structure violates aesthetic compliance." I stared, half expecting a punchline, but her face was stone. She thrust a $75 violation notice at me, red letters screaming failure to comply. I laughed, not politely. "You're fining me for land you don't own? My address isn't in your HOA." I showed her the utility letter again. She barely glanced at it. "Administrative oversight," she said, waving her clipboard. "We're correcting the boundaries with the county." Across the cove, the HOA's wind chimes clanged, a hollow sound that felt like a taunt. Their dock sported a no trespassing sign, the irony thick as lake fog. "You're claiming my water now?" I asked, locking eyes. She doubled down, voice rising. "The HOA has environmental oversight for all waterfront properties." I started recording again. "Say that again," I said. "You're telling me my dock, my shoreline, my water all yours?" She didn't flinch, repeating her claim for the camera. When she left, her parting glare promised trouble. 3 days later, I woke to metal clanking on my dock. 3 workers in vests were bolting a black silk curtain to the anchor ring Dad had set in concrete decades ago. "HOA order," one muttered. "Environmental safety." My blood boiled. That ring wasn't just steel, it was Summers tying ropes, fishing with Dad, a piece of him rooted in this lake. I grabbed his old bolt cutters from the toolbox, their weight steadying me. "You're trespassing," I said, voice low. "Get off my dock." They hesitated, but I didn't. The cutters snapped the steel line, the barrier collapsing into the water with a splash. Margaret appeared, furious. "You're destroying community equipment," she spat. I held up the cutters. "Taking back what's mine." Neighbors watched from the shore, their expressions shifting from curiosity to doubt. That night, the harassment escalated. Drones buzzed over my cabin, their red lights blinking like mechanical eyes. By the 4th night, floodlights from the HOA's dock blasted my windows, turning my bedroom into a stage. Sleep became a memory. I wasn't just fighting for land anymore, this was personal. So I fought back with light of my own. I set up a live stream camera on the porch, broadcasting the drones and floodlights to anyone who'd watch. Neighbors tuned in, then strangers. The chat exploded. This is harassment. My HOA pulled the same crap. When a drone crashed into the lake, the audience roared with me. Margaret wasn't just fighting mesh, was fighting a growing crowd. The turning point came at a Sunday confrontation. Margaret arrived with 2 HOA board members, clipboards in tow, accusing me of interfering with community security equipment. I pointed to the floodlights. Those aren't for safety theory, aimed at my bedroom. Before she could respond, Mrs. Clara Thompson, an 80-year-old neighbor, spoke up. Those lights keep me awake too. It's like living under a spotlight. Mr. Luis Martinez, another neighbor, joined in. There was no vote for this. You act like you own the lake. The crowd murmured, skepticism spreading. I held up my phone, recording. Rebecca claims this is for the environment. My neighbors say otherwise. Who's telling the truth? Margaret stormed off, her board members trailing, but the seed was planted. Doubt crept in after a visit from Jack Sullivan, Dad's old friend. He sat on my porch, hat in hand, and urged me to pay the fines and keep the peace. He slid a county map across the boards, claiming it showed my cabin in HOA jurisdiction. The signatures looked too clean, the date smudged. This is fake, I said, anger rising. Dad would have fought this, and you know it. Jack's guilt flickered, but his warning lingered. Margaret had lawyers, influence, power. I wasn't just fighting one woman, I was up against a machine. I countered with facts. I ordered a professional water testing kit, collecting samples from my shoreline with meticulous care. The results were a revelation. My water was cleaner than the lake average, while the HOA's access points showed higher bacteria. Margaret's environmental claims were a lie. When she showed up with her own test results, I spotted the forgery, instantly copied decimals from a 2017 county report. Want to explain this? I asked, sliding my results across the table. Her smile faltered, but she pivoted, offering to help with septic upgrades if I paid a compliance fee. I saw her notebook slip out, marked Phase 2, filled with doctored charts and a list of target properties. She wasn't just after mesh, wanted the whole lake. The community meeting was electric. The room overflowed with neighbors, some recording, others whispering. I presented first, showing Dad's surveys, my clean water tests, and the video of Margaret claiming my water. Laughter broke the tension. Then Margaret took the stage, wielding charts and a federal environmental emergency declaration. The crowd gasped, but something felt off. I called the county environmental office on speaker. No such declaration exists, the official said. The room erupted. Neighbors stood, sharing stories of fines for dock colors, fake violations, harassment. Margaret's lies unraveled in real time. She stammered, then fled, her legal team scurrying behind. The final showdown came at an emergency board meeting. County officials arrived, laying out evidence of Margaret's fraud. Fake documents, unapproved projects, $35,000 in misspent funds. Fire Marshal Tom Reed issued fines for tampering with equipment and falsifying records. The board suspended Margaret, and the crowd roared. She left, vowing legal action, but no one followed. The board promised transparency, forming a community-led environmental committee. I was thanked by the county for exposing the truth, invited to lead a real water quality initiative. Weeks later, the lake was quiet again. I rebuilt Dad's garden, fixed the dock, and sat on the porch each evening, the sunset painting the water gold. Neighbors waved, laughed, connected. The committee thrived, planting native grasses and testing water together. Margaret's influence faded, her threats met with county warnings. Jack apologized, and we mended our bond. I found Dad's journal, his words a quiet affirmation. This land is our anchor. Defend it with courage and truth. I had. The fight wasn't just about my cabin. It was about standing up to bullies who twist rules to steal what's yours. Truth alone isn't enough, you have to shine a light on it, rally others, and never back down. As I watched the loons glide across Willow Lake, I knew I'd honored Dad's legacy. The peace was mine again, hard-won and unshakable. What do you think about this story? Have you ever faced a bully like Margaret, or fought against injustice in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective on standing up to power and protecting what's yours.